Something is happening in Harmony, Buckeye, and it all revolves around a restored 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. The Camaro in question is owned by Harmony native Ash Espinosa, who has found themselves at the center of one of Harmony's largest criminal conspiracies. As a result, Espinosa is currently fighting the state to retain possession of their prized Camaro. So, how exactly did we get here?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Duncan, Cardinal County Prosecuting Attorney. Several months ago, the dedicated detectives of the Harmony Police Department began an investigation into missing funds from Trillium High School, part of one of Cardinal County's largest school districts. Through their investigation, detectives discovered that the missing money, totaling $80,000, was just the tip of the iceberg. Harmony residents Ash Espinosa and Harley Diallo were engaged in a months-long conspiracy to embezzle funds and launder money through their shared business, a junkyard called Diallo's Scrap and Sale. Due to the hard work and dedication of the Harmony PD detectives and the people in this office, Ash Espinosa and Harley Diallo both entered into plea agreements and have begun their prison sentences. This office will continue the process of recovering the money that Espinosa and Diallo illegally obtained. Rest assured that justice will be served.
We'll hear argument this morning in Case 17-1091, Timbs versus Indiana.
The freedom from excessive fines applies to the states because it is deeply rooted in our nation's history and traditions and fundamental to our scheme of ordered liberty.
What is to happen if a state needing revenue says anyone who speeds has to forfeit the Bugatti, Mercedes, or a special Ferrari, or even jalopy?
Magna Carta had the principle of salvo contentamento, the idea that you can't take from a man so much that he would be destitute. Recognizing that this is highly contextual, highly fact-intensive, and something that ought to be developed in the lower courts before this court pronounces any particular test.
Thank you, counsel. The case is submitted.
In 2022, cousins Ash Espinosa and Harley Diallo pleaded guilty to crimes related to their embezzlement and money laundering scheme. The government is now in the process of recuperating the money lost due to Diallo's and Espinosa's criminal activity. What does this all have to do with the 1967 Chevy Camaro? Let's untangle that web. Ash Espinosa and Harley Diallo are cousins and co-owners of a junkyard called Diallo's Scrap and Sale. In November of 2020, the two became involved in a conspiracy to embezzle and launder money through their junkyard. Over the course of the next year, $80,000 was embezzled from Trillium High School and laundered through the junkyard, along with the additional $320,000 from other sources. As you might imagine, someone eventually noticed the missing money from Trillium and tipped off the police. Detective Makani Kakoa with the Harmony Police Department began an investigation. That is when things went south for the cousins.
Ash Espinosa and Harley Diallo got caught. It's as simple as that. They were co-conspirators in a scheme worth $400,000, and the evidence was overwhelming, so they both pleaded guilty. Now that case is settled, but it's not the end of this story. In a crime where there's financial damage, the state can take action to recuperate that lost money, called restitution. This is typically done by seizing property through fines, garnishments, etc. When only one person's involved, this can already be a pretty complicated process. Now, add in multiple conspirators and multiple crimes, and the whole situation becomes a lot messier. Even though both parties in this case have already admitted wrongdoing and are currently serving prison time, there is disagreement about who was the leader of the conspiracy. This point of contention is legally significant because, well, it directly impacts how the state can recover the outstanding restitution. The state has already liquidated the junkyard and seized assets from both Espinosa and Diallo to recover the majority of that $400,000 total. However, someone is still on the hook for $18,500. Now, Diallo has no assets left, and Espinosa's home is protected from forfeiture. So the only avenue for recovering that remaining restitution is Espinosa's 1967 Chevy Camaro, which is what brings us to the currently pending case. The state's attempting to seize the Camaro because they contend that Ash Espinosa is the leader of the conspiracy, and therefore they are liable for the full restitution amount. This comes directly from a district court case, U.S. v. Leyva, which ruled that conspiracy leaders can be held jointly and severally liable for any conspiracy proceeds. This is just legal jargon that means a conspiracy leader can be required to pay restitution for the full amount of the conspiracy, and not just the portion for which they were directly responsible.
In the case involving Ash Espinosa, the court falls within Leyva jurisdiction, which means whoever is identified as the conspiracy leader is responsible for the full restitution amount. The state bears the burden of proof on this issue, and the state contends that Ash Espinosa is the conspiracy leader. While there is no single definition of leadership that courts use to make this determination, past court cases can provide some guidance. Courts have found leadership in cases where an individual inspires others to take action, exercises independent initiative, develops strategy for the group, or holds themselves out as a leader. This is not an exhaustive list, and not all courts find these factors to be persuasive, but they can be helpful guideposts. The state will need to prove that Ash Espinosa exhibited enough leadership qualities to convince the court that Espinosa can be held liable for the entire conspiracy. Makani Kakoa surveilled both Espinosa and Diallo, making them a likely witness for the state to prove Espinosa's leadership. Diallo may testify that the conspiracy was Espinosa's idea and that Diallo is simply following along. The state may also rely on a former employee of Diallo's scrap and sale to show how involved Espinosa was with the junkyard's finances. Ash Espinosa will, of course, dispute all of this. If the state is successful in convincing the court that Ash Espinosa is the conspiracy leader, Espinosa is liable for the remaining $18,500 in restitution. But that is just step one.
This case is fascinating because it's what we call a case of first impression. It comes down to a constitutional issue that is currently situated in a bit of a gray area in the state of Buckeye. Even if the state is successful in convincing the court that Ash Espinosa was the leader of the conspiracy, they still may not be able to seize Espinosa's Camaro. Espinosa claims that forfeiture of the Camaro would constitute an excessive fine, thus violating their Eighth Amendment right against excessive fines and punishment. Espinosa asserts that the Camaro is worth approximately $85,000, which they contend to be well in excess of the outstanding restitution. The resolution of this issue is going to come down to who can make a more persuasive showing of the vehicle's value, and whether the court considers that valuation to be excessive in comparison to the restitution owed. The defense bears the burden for this issue, so expect to hear a lot from them about the Camaro's value. Espinosa worked on restoring the vehicle with their child, OCLRE, so both individuals have firsthand knowledge of what the Camaro is worth. The defense team has also hired a local auto appraiser, Presley Aoki, who agrees with Espinosa's valuation of the vehicle. On the other hand, the state will likely also present their own witness to provide an alternate valuation. Gray Obasanya, the former employee of Diallo's Scrap and Sale and now owner of the junkyard, can testify about their estimation of the vehicle's value. Drawing on their extensive background in automobiles and their proximity to the Camaro during its restoration, they assign a drastically lower valuation for the car. While the history of the excessive fines clause of the Eighth Amendment dates back to the Magna Carta, the courts have been fairly quiet on the issue until recently. Prior to the landmark case Timbs v. Indiana, the excessive fines clause applied only to the federal government. It wasn't until 2019 that the U.S. Supreme Court extended the protection against excessive fines to be enforceable against state governments. And even in that case, the court neglected to define excessive fines or provide a formula or multiplier for determining when exactly a fine becomes excessive. Instead, they left that decision to the lower court. The Indiana Supreme Court took up the issue on remand in a case known as State v. Timbs, often referred to as Timbs II. This is what brings us to the local case involving Ash Espinosa's Camaro. The state of Buckeye has never encountered a case like this, so there is no state-level precedent to follow. The Cardinal County Court instead is using Timbs II as guidance. In cases when the court needs to determine whether a forfeiture violates the excessive fines clause, Timbs II instructs the courts to follow a gross disproportionality test, which has 3 elements. 1, the harshness of the punishment. 2, the severity of the offense. And 3, the claimant's culpability. For Ash Espinosa's case, the defense bears the burden of proving that forfeiture of the Camaro would constitute an excessive fine. The defense does not need to prove all 3 elements to be successful. They simply need to present enough evidence of one or more of the 3 factors to persuade the court that forfeiture of the Camaro is grossly disproportionate.
What will happen to the 1967 Chevrolet Camaro?
This is the brand new one from Chevrolet Camaro, the driving machine that's something else.
A Cardinal County court will decide its fate in a trial set to begin in January of 2024.